Hello and welcome to Current Wave. I'm your host, Ayla Wayman, and in this podcast, we meander through our shared delusions and stumble into ethereal shit talking as we dive into the waves of the human experience. I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you enjoy the ride. Hello, and welcome to episode 11 of Current Wave. I'm your host, Ayla Wayman. I'm here in Colorado with this beautiful background. I'm kind of backlit, but the mountains are just glorious. And we have a beautiful conversation today with a new friend and beautiful male influence, Andrew. He is such a deeply powerful human, and I was so excited to get to speak with him today. And we had such an amazing conversation. We went a lot of different directions, and it just felt really deep and powerful and aligned. And a big part of why I have this show and this platform is to have all sorts of conversations with tons of different people from different lineages and backgrounds. And, I think that a lot of these conversations have become a lot deeper than I expected. This show had a slightly different ethos at its conception, and I wanted it to be light, excuse me, light and playful and a little bit silly. And the people that I'm calling into this sphere just are insanely incredible and amazing. And I'm so grateful to call them my friends and acquaintances and people sort of like right outside of my personal inner circle. And so it just felt like we really dropped in a special way to a special timeline. And we touched on a lot of topics that I feel like are vital for these times. We touched on a lot of topics that are vital for these times. And one of them that we get into right away that I think is just really potent is the role of elders in our community and our own development in our society, and how, at least in this culture in the US, unless you are more from an immigrant culture where some of those traditions have really been preserved in beautiful ways, um, elders are not centered in our lives. And Andrew talks about how there's a difference between elders and olders. And it was really inspiring to be in a conversation with a man who is really already preparing himself for the long haul of service, of connecting, of finding his place in his lineage and path, and really caretaking deep teachings. And Andrew walks some medicine paths and shares with plant medicine and has been studying these ways for many, many years and has blessings from beautiful elders to carry this work forward, which I really think is so special to learn from those who have come before and to really go deep into the teachings, to take our time with them, to develop ourselves and our own paths. And so I love everything that he shared and the work he does, the way that he really is a steward, I think, of lineage. He's a steward of the old ways. And I personally really believe that we need people who are sort of like at the leading edge, moving us forward in these ways that are expanding humanity, more from like the forefront. And then we need people who are cultivating tradition traditions and keeping them intact. And so those are some things that really stuck with me from this conversation. But Andrew has so much heart, so much depth and soul, and he is just a full spectrum human. And I was really grateful to have time to speak with him and honored to have him on this show. And he's a dear friend of my dear friend, Christiana, who was also on this podcast. So if you're curious to hear from her, you can definitely go back and find her episode. And they have co-created, along with Andrew's wife, this beautiful retreat in Portugal. And if there was any retreat that I was doing this summer, this would be the one. Unfortunately, I'm not able to make it this year, but it is a psilocybin retreat, ceremonial, and really tended to with such care and foresight and guidance, and so much time for quiet and integration. And they're really taking a different approach in this space. And, yes, you might have a really big experience, but it's so much more about really integrating that experience. Christiana and Andrew are both psychedelic integration coaches and do so much with this work. So they are just, I have all of the trust in the world for them and their craft. And I know that they have both studied with such heart and integrity and earnest what am I trying to say? Just like such an earnest path to discover their own place in the world and to really, really care for that place in such service of others and such creation of beauty and love and compassion. And it's just a beautiful place. If you can't tell, I'm a little obsessed with them. So, yeah, if you're interested, there's still a few spots left for their retreat. And it is, I think, the first week of June. The dates are going to be in there. I'm forgetting the exact moment, but there's really still time if it's calling to you. I so encourage you to dive in and explore that. It is a deeply healing and revealing experience. The retreat is called Alchemy of Clarity. And I know personally two friends who have come away from that experience with such clarity and purpose for their lives. So it's amazing. And I just can't speak more highly of them. Anyway, this conversation is really powerful. And we go a lot of different places speaking about plant medicine, creativity, the plants in general, Andrew's work and his path, and a lot of sort of like the background and foundation that he has built and his belief systems that he's built his work upon. So I'm so excited to share this with you. Hi. Hi, Andrew.
Hello, Lila.
Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me. It's really a honor and privilege to be a part of this platform and to be interviewed by you. So thank you for making the time and for reaching out.
Thank you as well. I'm so excited and grateful to have you. And yeah, you're also our first male guest, which feels really
Wow.
good and significant, bringing in that masculine energy.
Hmm. Thank you. What an honor. I
Yeah.
hope I serve the role justice.
Oh, I have a sense you will. Yeah, well, hello everyone. Welcome to this episode of Current Wave. This is our 11th episode, so that feels lovely and exciting. And I'm really excited about our guest today, Andrew. Andrew is a ceremonialist, compassionate guide, and multidisciplinary artist from New York. For well over a decade, Andrew has traveled the world passionately studying, learning from, and working directly with master plant teachers, ceremonial traditions, and the practice of holistic mind body healing through herbalism, psycho-emotional well-being and spiritual teachings. And I'm thrilled to have you. Is there anything
Mm.
else that you would want to share about who you are in this moment?
Wow. Well, I think we would maybe need 11 episodes by themselves to explore who I am in this moment.
I
But
feel
how
that.
I am in this moment is uh,
Mm,
very happy, very pleased to um, be invited onto this platform to have a discussion, to share
mm,
more about yeah, what I'm most interested in, what I'm most passionate about, what I'm offering, and
yeah.
the process of self discovery. That's definitely been the journey I've been on, and I know the journey many of your listeners are on. And I'm just
Yeah.
happy to be able to even reflect and share a bit of my journey. So thank you for having me on
Mm,
again.
yeah. I'm so grateful. I think that I love just hearing people's paths and stories throughout my path. That's been so helpful and so nourishing. And especially in my earlier 20s when podcasts really exploded and came out, and just
Yes.
finding those voices and people who are a little bit ahead of me or with me, and just that camaraderie in knowing that there's just so much to being a human,
Mm,
and how magical it is, and what a journey to kind of like really land and find our path.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is indeed a journey, and it's been a journey for me. And I too have received a lot of support from all the different forms of media and conversation that
Yeah.
exists now during these times. And I think it's important to note that these ways of expression, that we have access to, especially during these times, are such a great deal of help for so many people who are learning how to navigate this journey of life, and to be
Yeah.
able to receive companionship and support from people who may be entirely in a different continent. It's such
Yeah.
a blessing, and something I personally have benefited from immensely throughout my journey.
Mm. Yes, totally. Well, let's dive a little bit into this realm. I would love to hear a little bit about your background and kind of your path to the work that you do now, and how you
Mm,
kind of discovered the things that really resonated with you, that now you're stepping into teaching and sharing, and
mm,
of course always being a student of. But yeah, I would just love to hear a little bit about your background and journey.
yes, thank you. My journey has been very circuitous, as it is
Mm,
for many people on this path of life. And,
yeah.
having a podcast of my own and being interviewed on a few other podcasts, I have been trying to learn how to be succinct with sharing my journey.
Like,
Um,
yeah.
because, there's so many details and twists and turns and foundational events and experiences that shape us into who we are today.
Yeah.
But to begin, as you said, my name is Andrew. Currently, I'm in Long Island, New York, in the home where I was raised,
Mm,
visiting my parents for some time. And it feels interesting to even be having this conversation here right now,
mm,
because I'm able to reflect on my youth. And
yeah.
lately, I've been reflecting on my youth and feeling a lot of gratitude for the way I was raised. So
Mm,
I'm a first generation American.
mm,
My father is from Iran, and my mother is from Jamaica. And
mm,
they both grew up in the countryside of their homes, their
mm,
homelands. And being that they were both immigrants and both coming from places where, resources were maybe a little bit more limited, and they were living definitely a lot closer to the land back in their
mm,
day,
right.
and their communities and their families and their work was directly in relation to the land that they lived upon.
Mm,
And they didn't have, all the pharmacies and supermarkets and storefronts and all these different things that we have access to here in the West. And
yeah.
growing up here in New York, I always felt a sense of gratitude for the abundance that we had here in comparison to what they had there in their respective countries. And as I grew up and I started to ask more questions and had more interest into how they were raised, when I would hear about the stories of them cooking on open fires or collecting
Mm,
rainwater or going to the spring to collect their drinking water, or their parents working in the fields and farming and all that way of life, it actually made me start to feel like I was maybe missing something here
mm,
in the States, you
wow.
know? I was like, wow, that sounds really, really cool, you know? And I would spend many, many, many trips, many years going to my grandfather's land in Jamaica specifically
Mm,
and getting to see, you know, exactly how my mother was raised with her
yeah.
siblings and exactly how people had a different connection with the land. And as I became a teenager and was moving through my adolescence, there were parts of me that really wanted to learn more about those aspects of my ancestry
Yeah.
and the blessings I once felt regarding being raised here in the United States started to fade a little bit, and I started to have a little bit more of a romantic idea of how it would have been raised, be how it would have been to be raised in, a mountainous area where you really were dependent on the forest.
Mm,
So I think that really sparked my interest into anthropology, ethnobotany. Both of my parents had a much deeper understanding of the plants in their vicinity and how to use plants for healing and for wellness. And I think all these little seeds that were being planted in my heart, in my soul, in my psyche, led me to
mm,
become very curious about the plants, about native traditions, about how people really lived and connected with the land on a very intimate and spiritual level.
mm,
And through that, I started my explorations into the plant kingdom and queendom, and started with experimenting with some of the more psychoactive and enlightening plants that were in the forefront of the culture at that time.
mm,
And through that, started studying different mysticism schools and different, Eastern philosophies, and just this awakening really burst forth into my life in my late adolescence and would lead
mm,
into my early 20s. And I definitely became a bit of an adventurer.
mm,
So the moment I graduated college, I knew I want to get out of here. I want to leave this country. I want to go see a different place. And I decided through, again, a very circuitous means, decided on going down to Ecuador back in
mm,
2016 for the first time. And to make a long story a little bit shorter, down there in Ecuador, I ended up meeting my spiritual family and
mm,
a group of people in a community that would become my mentors and elders and teachers and ceremonial guides and inspirations, which led me into the path of uh, learning more about ancestral ceremonies and ceremony itself, and uh, really learning a spiritual language that made a lot of sense to me, and engaging into a very natural and organic apprenticeship with this family of medicine men and medicine women. So
mm.
that is like a bit of what led me to where I am today. And there's a lot that has
Yeah.
occurred in between. But really, uh, this reconnection to what it is to be human, what it is to uh, be aware that there's something bigger than all of us,
Mm,
and to connect back with that divine source and use that connection to produce wellness and safety and peace for myself and for those around me has really been the deepest prayer of my life these recent years. So
mm,
hopefully that sets a little bit of a foundation for who I am and my work.
mm. Absolutely. Thank you for that beautiful story of your journey and becoming. And yeah, that was really profound. And
Mm.
I love so many things that you touched on. Um, the first was really, I love how, especially in our lineages and in our family, like those threads that we can kind of feel from our past. And like you said, the way that both of your parents were raised with the land and like their ancestors, and
Hmm.
that journey that we all have as humans, that was much closer to the earth than we've become in really like the last 50 years. There's been just like a
Yes.
huge jump. Like even 50 years ago, the world was very different. The last century has just been exponential growth in one direction.
Hmm.
And it's really beautiful how you had that pull in you of like desiring that way of life, even and that juxtaposition almost with the modern abundance and the gratitude for that, and then this other abundance that I feel like
Yes.
is that is the animate world, is nature, is like where our built abundance really is like coming from originally,
Mm.
and kind of that circle you made in your own being to have gratitude for both and then want to really dive into the natural world and the plants.
Yes,
So
certainly.
I love that. And I love it sounds like the plants sort of were an important part of your awakening and brought you into yeah, like that discovery and those spiritual paths and all of the things that you were studying. Well, I guess
Yes,
we'll circle
definitely.
back into that, but I just love all of that. And then I was really struck with I feel that in the United States, I think really specifically, we really don't have a relationship unless we seek it out and are called to it to elders and to
Mm,
teachers and sort of this apprentice model that was inherent to everything for a
yes.
long time. And then we kind of like outsource that to just like go to school and go to college and not necessarily developing those deeper relationships.
Mm,
And I would love to kind of go into that realm and like you meeting your
mm,
spiritual family and developing these relationships with mentors.
yes. Wow, this is one of my favorite topics to discuss and explore because it's so close to my heart. And I really do see it as being one of the biggest issues that we're moving through today
Mm,
as a
yeah.
society. Just this lack of elders, adults not doing the work to become elders, and also
Mm,
the youth not seeking out the elders that do exist and that are present and sharing themselves.
yeah.
Um, and I would say for me, the importance of elderhood and spending time with elders and learning from them was foundational in my upbringing
Mm,
through connecting with my grandparents and having them in my life, specifically my maternal grandparents.
mm,
And really, before I had the words to describe it, realizing that as a child and in my early, adolescent years, the presence of my grandparents was so deeply nourishing and just provided me
mm.
with so much
Sweet.
safety and comfort and love. And unfortunately, or just the way things happened to be, by the time I was in my mid to early late teens, both or all of my grandparents had passed away by that point.
Mm,
So as I was really beginning to mature, um, I lost access to that physical, tangible
mm.
connection with them. And I
Yeah.
found myself, as I was becoming 18, 19, early 20s, really wishing that they were still around so that I could ask them certain questions that I would have loved answers to or support with at that time in my life.
Mm, yeah.
Um, so I think it was no coincidence that at the age of, 20, 21, 22, I started to really seek out that kind of support through other means. And, the anthropological studies I was doing by studying other ancient cultures and native traditions, the insights into just a reality where elders were so appreciated and necessary and crucial
Mm,
was so fascinating to me.
yeah.
Um, and just learning about what happens when the elders are not. sought out? What happens to the youth when there's a lack of presence of elders, and what happens to the entire community, and beyond the community, what happens to the entire planet and the health of the earth itself? Um, so, although maybe I didn't have the conscious awareness of it, I believe when I first went down to South America to meet with the different master plant teachers down there, I was also seeking a deeper connection to the wisdom of the elders that were accessible to me. And, after going down there and meeting, the spiritual family that really helped me in so many different ways and who really welcomed me into their home and into their lives, um, I started to speak with them and ask them about their elders, and
Yeah.
who they learned from. And, they would share stories with me. And eventually, as I kind of walked further down their path and their lineage, they really encouraged me to seek out some of their elders to go through some initiatory
Mm,
rites. And I did my first vision quest with an elder named Taita Alejo in the south of Ecuador in a beautiful land called Sharakpamba. And
mm,
he was an elder and is an elder to some of my friends and mentors down there in Ecuador. And getting to meet and spend time with him, among others as well, it just reminded me that the transmission you receive from an elder is simply through their presence. It's not always through their words or through their past or what you learn about them. Simply being in the presence of an elder, you feel what I felt as a child being around my grandparents, a sense of ease, a sense of support, a sense of emanating wisdom that is nourishing beyond words. Um,
mm,
and getting to spend time with a few different elders throughout my life and forge relationships with them, it helped me orient myself to say, okay, Andrew, what do you need to do now as a young man to ensure that you get the right to become an elder? Because
mm,
as you know, Michael Mead and Bill Plotkin and a few others say, there's a big difference between elders and olders. And right
mm,
now on this planet, there's a lot of olders, a lot of people who may have reached uh, the age of elderhood, but don't carry themselves as elders. And how does that
mm,
happen? That happens from people not doing the necessary work in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and then
mm,
eventually they're at an age where, maybe somebody crosses them on the street and they think they're an elder, but really mentally they're still an adolescent, you know?
mm,
Um, so the nourishment I received from elders, the support, the guidance, the love, the care, the tough love, even in certain moments, really has helped me become clear on how I would like to carry myself in this current phase of my life. And
yeah.
it gave me aspirations to what I would like to eventually become if God grants me with the blessing
Mm,
of more years on this earth.
mm,
So a lot of the work I do is also centered around the teachings of my different elders, and making sure that I'm always carrying what they have gifted me with a lot of care, with a lot of reverence, because the things I have received from these different traditions and lineages that have accepted me, from the different elders that have accepted me, it's a treasure that is beyond value. um, so it's something that needs to be cared for. And through any work I do, through any conversation I have, I do my best to really respect that gift and make them proud. So
mm.
hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah. So beautiful. And there's so much potency in all of that. And it is, I mean, I'm so hopeful, honestly, about the potential of the future. Like it
Mm.
feels so amazing, especially because there really are so many people on the planet waking up to the imbalance and working toward amending that in all of our own unique paths and ways. And I really do think that this is one of them, of not having this, those oral histories, those stories. And as you said, like the biggest gift is really just like they are embodying that, their path, and having living teachers I think is so important, as
Yes.
because you get that embodiment, you get that transmission. It's not even necessarily in like that oral history or written history, it's in their
Mm-hmm.
presence, it's in being with them. And seeing that kind of evokes our own desire, as it has evoked in you, to kind of continue their lineage, continue their teachings, and like weave that thread forward into the future, which feels so vital. And like that the past needing to be with us to create, I think, a harmonious future, and centering that. And I think the only way we can really do that is being in contact with elders, being in that history, and like learning the lineage, learning the teachings, and as you said, carrying them forward with reverence and respect. And of course, we'll add our own flavors to them as they
Yes.
progress and grow, and as we figure out who we are, and this merging happens, but it like preserves what is true to me.
Mm.
And so
Yes.
I'm so happy that you're on that path and have these beautiful elders in your life, and really, yeah, just consciously in relationship with this. I think it's so vital. And I
Mm.
really hope that the world can shift to, yeah, to having elders be a bigger part of the culture, especially
Mm-hmm.
here in the US. I think like I have really close friends in Mexico, and their relationship, even with just their grandparents, is so different. And
Yes.
it's a much more family oriented, multi generational experience. And I think that can be true in the US, but it depends on your lineage, where you were born, your family stuff. It's not a cultural thing
Mm.
as much.
Yes. Totally. And, I think a good hallmark of an elder is that they're going to take into their awareness the consideration of all life around them.
Mm,
The entire
yeah.
constellation of the family, of the
Mm,
community, of the land that they are stewarding and caring for. And I feel like sometimes that's also what's lacking, even in some people's relationships with their grandparents.
yeah.
Um, of course, often people receive those same sentiments that I expressed earlier, feeling safe and comfortable and loved by their grandparents, and that is not to be taken for granted. It's a big blessing.
Yeah.
Though, like a true elder carries themselves in a way that is considerate of all the life around them. And I think for myself as well, especially working with the plants and working with different ceremonial traditions, which we know is rising in popularity a lot right now, it's also
Mhm.
really good to have someone to answer to,
Mm,
someone who's going to kind of hold you accountable and make sure that you're doing things in a way of your fullest integrity and
yeah.
care, and someone who you can go to and ask questions. I mean, so many people right now are so lost and confused, and myself included in times. And
Yeah.
it's really important to have a strong pillar of support that you can go to and
Yeah.
really explore the depths of who you are and where you are in a safe way, and by someone who really has seen the path as well. So
Mhm.
I think everything you shared was very beautifully said as well, and really praying that this connection to the importance of elders really can be increased in these times.
Mm, me too. Yeah. Beautiful. And it also feels like, as you said, like those elders are really, feel like carrying life, championing life, and all of that. And what you said in like right now, as a young man, cultivating yourself so that you can be an elder feels like that has so much foresight and so much it's not a self-centered view. It's like a human-centered view. It's a humanity-centered view. It's saying like I want to develop myself and my path so that I can also serve generations to come.
Mm.
And that's just, yeah, it's beautiful. It's touching and so important. And also just like this whole mystery of life is so big. And I think we're in an era where it's like so focused on the individual, so focused on the
Yep.
self. And I think rebalancing that is so important too. Like, yes, I want to find my path in this life and create the things that are like calling to me. And can I do it in service of the whole?
Yes.
Hmm, beautiful. Okay, well, I want to go a little bit into your work and your business. And I was looking at your site and reading about all of your offerings, and I was really taken by your business name,
Mm-hmm.
Peaceful Arrows. And on your site, you kind of use that to kind of pull some threads of the structures that you work with, and sort of it really felt like this underlying ethos of your work and
Mm.
the way that you support others. And I would love to hear kind of about how you came to that name. And it feels like there's kind of some history there and
Mm.
a supportive structure that I would love for you to touch on.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much for asking and for checking out the website. As of this recording, my new website has only been live for about 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. I mean,
um,
it's beautiful. I just
Thank
hadn't
you.
ever seen it. So I thought it was always like that, but it's amazing. And there's so much
Mm.
beautiful information on there. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I could really say that Peaceful Arrow and the website and the entire platform and everything I'm aiming to build with it has been a long process. I would say maybe even a 9, 10 year process to reach the point of crafting a platform and a website like that for myself.
Yeah.
And it really has sprung forth very organically and naturally for me because I've been in a position, whether I like to admit it or not, I've been in a position of service for quite some time now. And
Mm,
I've always, up until now, really allowed my different offerings to be spread by word of mouth or just
mm,
amongst the community that I'm interacting with on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly level through my travels and through my other mediums of expression. And Peaceful Arrow really came from a deep place within my heart of saying, you've been in this position of service for quite some time now. And I haven't been hiding, but I also haven't made a home for all of my offerings.
mm,
I haven't made a central altar for people to come
mm,
visit and see what's
yeah.
there for them, if it resonates with them. And for me, the name came about very um, in an interesting way. From my time with my friends, with my mentors, and with the elders down in South America, they have this symbolism of the arrow that they speak to very often in ceremony.
Mm,
And they speak often that our intentions, our prayers, are like arrows being cast forth into the center of the universe.
mm,
And that what we put out with that arrow has long lasting reverberations. So it's really important to be mindful of what our intentions are, what our prayers are, and where we hope for them to land because they go beyond having an effect on ourselves. And they would speak to the fact that when you're praying for something specific or you're really looking to receive some support, it's good to be singular and clear in that prayer and specific, so that you really increase the likelihood of receiving what you're casting
Mm,
out. And when you shoot an arrow, you don't shoot a series of arrows all at once. You take your time to really prepare yourself for the raising of the bow, placing that single arrow into the bow and aiming your sights on what you'd like to receive and letting that arrow go into the universe. And I really love the symbolism of the arrow and the way that the elders speak about it, because it gives you a sense of focus, of clarity, of intention, um, and of preparation that really can help you embody what you're seeking to receive in your life, what you're seeking to put out there. Um, it induces a sense of care, because an arrow obviously reaches the heart of something.
mm,
Um, and through these teachings of the sacred arrow that I've learned about, really incorporating my own being and my own intentions for my life and my own prayers of my life, I came to the name Peaceful Arrow
mm,
because I really live a prayer that whatever I'm casting out into the heart of this universe, to the ears of the Creator, I'm always praying that it has a peaceful result, that it embodies the prayer of peace. And the deepest prayer I have for my life is that I can generate and sustain peace within myself and also within my immediate environment and extended environment. So the name Peaceful Arrow came from all of that, and it just
mm,
felt right. It took a long time to receive that name. And as you said earlier, and as we were reflecting about elders and about being selfless, I wanted to create a platform that didn't only center around myself and my journey. Yes, it's a place for me to share a lot about my journey and to share my different offerings and reflections, but also a place where I want people to be able to arrive to and maybe receive whatever support I can provide or that others can provide to help them get a little bit more clear on where they'd like to aim their arrows,
yeah,
how they would like to prepare themselves to um, start new ventures or care for themselves in a way that they haven't learned how to before, or simply become more educated on different spiritual teachings that I'm familiar with and
yeah.
interested in. So it's been a very organic and natural process. It feels really nice to
Mm,
have a home base, a center altar for all my work. The counseling calls, the ceremonial work, the psychedelic integration and preparation work, and the prayer at the end of the day for me is always peace. So if we're
mm,
going to cast forth anything into the heart of the universe, if we're going to send out any prayers, may they be peaceful ones.
mm.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Yes. That's really, that's such a, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I could feel that story and that depth in your words on the website, and I'm super grateful to hear them from you
Mm.
directly. And yeah, what a journey. And I think that from just a very tangible perspective, I love that you mentioned that this path to where you are in this moment has been a long time. I feel like there's such urgency in the world, and
Mm.
I think when we really align with like what we're meant to be doing, it can be slower than we think. And to be building this for 9 or 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
like I just really, part of what I like to share with other people is just like, yeah, like your path can take time to
Yes.
mature, to develop, and to really have your own internal structures and systems be able to really offer what is true for you. And I just always think that's such a good reminder to touch on. Like, it's hopefully a really long life, and we do have time to really develop
Mm,
everything. And I also just love that you're kind of calling this space an altar, and that's
mm,
so beautiful and such a perfect way of really describing what it is, because it is
mm,
like here are all of these pieces and things and
mm. Yes,
mm,
yes, and it's been quite the difficult process as well.
mm,
Just acknowledging the vulnerability of what it is to share yourself in that way, especially during
mm,
a time now where, with social media, there's a lot of people wanting to share their gifts and offer themselves, and there's many people out there doing that in a very genuine and authentic way. That's really needed right now. And of course, there's others who maybe are sharing uh, a version of themselves that is not accurate to who they really are or to what
yeah.
their capabilities are. And with the creation of Peaceful Arrow and the website itself, it was really healing for me because
Mm,
I had to really be on top of myself to make sure I'm presenting who I am as truthful to my heart as possible.
mm,
And that means, not exaggerating anything or claiming that I'm anything that I'm not, but also not censoring anything and limiting anything that I am, and really just putting it out there and saying, whoever arrives to me, whoever arrives to my work, if they resonate, great. Let's connect. Let's communicate. Let's work together. If not, that's perfectly all right. And really accepting that within myself has been a very healing process for me.
mm,
And that's part of the work as well, is to encourage people to share themselves, whatever you have. Share it authentically.
yeah.
Don't color it, and don't limit it. Just be, share, and I'm advocating for that and encouraging for that, because that is what I'm doing my best to do at this stage of my life. So
Mm,
yeah, thank you for your reflections as well.
yeah. That's such a beautiful reminder, and a really interesting and important one too. In this moment in time, there really is a lot of noise and a lot of, I think humanity is like in the birth canal, and we're really figuring out what this next phase of our time on earth is. And there are a lot of people who are discovering themselves and wanting to share, just as you said. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I've been involved in like building businesses and supporting other people build businesses. And I think if you do that in integrity, it is its own spiritual path. And I
Yes.
feel like you were really touching on that, because there's so much reflections of the self, and like, right, the stories in both directions that we can have, minimizing the self, exaggerating the self, and really finding that truth and that actual authentic expression and delivery of who we are. And it's such a growth path. Like, it's
Mm.
amazing to do that work and be in it. And it's really uncomfortable.
Oh
It
yeah.
can
Oh
be.
yeah,
You know,
for
it's
sure.
like such a beautiful container to be in. So I always feel like anyone who's building a business or putting themselves out there, if you're doing it consciously, wow, like you can really you can really you can really do some inner work in that
Mm.
process of uncovering. So thank you for
Yes.
sharing about that.
Mm.
I want to kind of tap into, I love your Instagram bio. Ceremony, prayer, community, plant medicines, photography, hip hop, knowledge, spirit, healing, travel, beauty, art, God.
Mm.
And I just love like those words as this spectrum of being a human and what that is. And Christiana and I also talked about this of like, in this modern moment, so many of these things that are inherently human are kind of distant from us, like singing daily.
Yes.
Oh, my dog might start barking.
Oh, it's okay. They're welcome here.
Yeah. All the other dogs are howling, and he might want to join in, which, he wants to sing and express his dogness.
Yes, of course.
Um, But yeah, like dancing and singing, attending birth, attending death, like this is all a part of being a human. And we kind of have put ourselves in these like little tiny boxes or puzzles of like, I do this, and it's all centered around our work often or
Mm,
one aspect of the self. And I just love that colorful, all of those words that are just like
mm-hmm,
front and center of
mm,
this tiny glimpse of being a full spectrum human.
yes, yes, entirely. Many of those words are my anchors in life.
Mm.
Um, Really, they're anchors for me. And what you're speaking to, there's so much truth there, and that's been a healing process for me along my journey to really embrace and realize and accept that singing, dancing, movement, community gathering, these are our inherent birthrights. They do not need to become careers. We do not need to be exceptional at them. I
Mm.
had a whole healing process. It's been multi years, but specifically back in 2019 regarding finding my voice for singing,
Mm. Yeah.
singing ceremonial songs specifically, and just honoring like you don't need to have the voice of Beyonce to sing.
Oh,
It's all valid. It's all welcome. It's all healing, and
yeah.
yeah, accepting those human aspects of ourselves and realizing that it connects directly to spirit, to the
Yeah.
divine, to
Mm.
creator. It's the bridge, the
Mm.
stomping of our feet on the earth. The physicality of that is a bridge to the other etheric realms where we can connect with source.
Yeah.
And it's been really helpful to acknowledge and embrace all of that, which you just so eloquently described.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. Because it's like we all have this beautiful range. And I think it's so important to kind of allow that to be so, even if our main focus is in one direction for, also for just maybe a portion of our life where like
Mm-hmm.
I've personally worked in fashion and now I do something totally different as my main focus, but I'm really wanting to for myself and really encourage others to like cultivate all of those little things that we love and
Mm,
that make us who we are because I know that I'm curious about like art and it seems like I know are you a photographer as well?
yes, yes, I am.
Like there's like this whole creative thing and then ceremony and one-on-one work. Like I think that that's so important to have these avenues and it's a lot to hold. It's not like we can
Mm,
always do all of it all at once,
yep.
but just kind of going around the circle of ourselves and allowing all those parts to be true and have a voice and a spot at the table as much as we can.
Mm,
So I would love to just touch on your orientation toward like art and creativity, and then we'll kind
mm.
of dive more into the other realms.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm such a people person. I just love people.
Mm,
I love
nice.
relating to people. I love, speaking with people. I love exploring people. I enjoy sharing myself with others. And I really believe for myself, my artistic expressions and my creative endeavors were really just a way to kind of reach out more to
Mm,
connecting with community.
yeah.
And, for me specifically, it's been through the mediumships of photography, of video, of music, of, podcasting. And for me, the way in which we relate to others, the way in which we collaborate with others is such an artistic endeavor. It really is so unique to each and every one of our own personalities. And when I got into photography in my late teens, I really saw it as a way of helping people understand more how I see this
Mm,
reality, how I see life.
mm, mhm,
And, that camera being an extension of my own eye. And also finding a way to capture and share the beauty of others.
Mm.
My portfolio website with my photography and video, it's being updated right now. But if it were live and you were to see it, you would see that it's mostly portraits of people.
Mm.
I love photographing nature. I love photographing animals and such and other things. But I love being able to capture the essence of who somebody is in that moment,
Mm.
simply through a photograph or some type of visual production. And I really see a lot of beauty in life.
Mm.
And I love to document that and share that. It's
Mm.
part of my prayer.
Mm.
And that skill set of camera work related directly to my degree, which in school I studied audio engineering. So I learned how to record music and produce
Oh,
music.
God.
And through that path, I got to meet a lot of really cool and beautiful creatives here in New York who
Mm.
I forged lifelong relationships with.
Amazing.
And from being in like that aspect of the entertainment industry and music creation and such, I'm someone who likes to understand all the different facets of the machine of getting someone's work and art out there.
Mm.
And I really saw that it was important that I knew how to record music for my friends and different artists who I was working with, but also knew how to produce music videos for them. Also knew how to do photo shoots for them and tie everything in. And during those early years when I was doing all this really creative work, and then eventually found myself on a more spiritual path for my own healing and well-being, I saw that all of these things merge together naturally, and it's all just an expression of self. And that's when I eventually began to use the skills I had gained, from my education and from those
Mhm.
earlier years of my life to help, produce pieces of content, to produce videos, photos that related to the passions of spirituality and wellness and plant medicines, and really bridging that gap between these different passions and realizing that whether it's painting, whether it's dancing, whether it's singing, whether it's graphic design, whatever it is, we can use these different forms of mediumship to share our gifts and to share what is on our hearts and minds. So for me, it's all art. All of it is art. This conversation we're having right now is pure art, and
Mm.
I think it's needed more and more because everyone has things to share, and I think often people just need to find the correct medium. And sometimes
Mm.
that takes exploration. I know for me, it did. And
Yeah.
thankfully, all those different areas I explored have given me a skill set to be able to utilize those things to help get my message across in what I hope is a beautiful, artful, aesthetically pleasing way.
Mm.
So that's a bit of a roundabout explanation to your question about art. But for me, it's all art, all of it.
Mm. I love that. That's such a beautiful explanation, and I totally resonate with that as well. And it really is like breathing is art. It's all here. This is all the creative act.
Exactly.
And remembering that and really just tapping into that creativity no matter what we're doing or how we're relating to work or life or any moment. It really
Hmm.
just, I think it like breathes life into it. And yeah, that's such a cool journey to kind of start in one place and also have it like weave into that spiritual realm and be able to, yeah, showcase and explore and play with
Mm.
the things that you do now in that way.
Yes.
I love that. That's so beautiful. Yeah, I would love to tap into the world of the plants and plant medicine and ceremony and your path in that a little bit more, if you're willing to share or any way you
Hmm.
want to speak to it. And then sort of kind of how you've come to work with those tools and modalities in your own way, and kind of how you support people in that realm.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for asking. Wow, I mean the plants. Those are my biggest teachers, my biggest elders, mentors, that have been with me, for they're in my bones. They're really in my bones. They're in my heart. And when I went down to South America for the first time, at that point in my life, I had already been exploring different plant teachers, and not only psychoactive plant teachers, but just different herbs and roots and yeah, natural forms of healing that I was studying. And by the time I really began having a deeper interest into more of these entheogenic plants and fungi, what really drew my interest to them, I would say in my early 20s, was yes, the effects of these plant teachers themselves and what they had to share, but even more so the community aspect to how these plants were being used in a ritualistic manner.
Yeah.
That's what really interested me. As I said, I love people. I love relating to community. I love being in community. And when I would read about, the way that these different cultures would connect with the plants and also connect around the plants, that really sparked my curiosity. And I think that's
Yeah.
um, part of the reason why I wanted to go down to South America and really meet some of the master plant teachers from that region of the Americas to connect with the plants themselves, but also their traditions and the way
Yeah.
of working with them as a community, as a group. So I've said this before, and I think many other people relate to this, but my first time being in a proper traditional ceremony, yes, it was centered around the use of an entheogenic plant teacher, but the entire process of sitting in a circle, hearing these sacred songs and chants, sitting around the fire together as a group, feeling safe, feeling vulnerable, feeling tender, all together, it felt so familiar to me. Even upon my first time, I said, wow, there's something I recognize about this.
Mm.
And that really intrigued me a lot. Like, why does this feel so familiar? As I would go on and learn and speak to my elders and speak to my friends down there and other teachers, I would be taught and reminded that we've been doing this for millennia, gathering around the fire, singing songs, sharing stories, healing together, also just celebrating life together.
Mm.
So through my interest with the plants, through my interest in my teachers' teachings and prayers and the way they live their lives, I made a commitment to return to Ecuador specifically every year. I haven't missed a visit there since I first went there back in 2016. I've
Mm.
even had the privilege and fortune to live there quite a few times for many months out of the year. And through this, I call it an apprenticeship in one sense, but also through just being of support to these, different families and people who have been living this way of life for decades. I began to naturally receive some of their transmissions and teachings and
Mm.
eventually encouragement to share, And one time I had a good friend of mine and a mentor say to me, there's enough medicine down here, in these communities. Like, go and share the medicines
Mm.
where you are because you have a genuine interest and you have us who you could refer back to. And, yes, maybe these are the things you need to go through to earn the right to share,
Mm.
but you have our support. Go, because your
Mm.
people in the West, your people in the United States and Europe and other places, not all of them can come down to Central or South America and meet with these plant teachers.
Mm.
So if you're going to be an ambassador for these plants, you have a responsibility to share them. in a good way, in your way. And through receiving that encouragement and those permissions, and that support, I naturally just started to find myself in situations where, people have, would approach me and would say, Andrew, like, I know you've been, working with the plants in this way, in the ceremonial way. I've seen, some of what you share. Would you be open to sharing that experience with me?
Mm,
And from the permission of, my principal teachers and guides and friends, I started to share these ceremonial ways in a very intimate manner with, friends and families and others.
mm, mhm,
And over the course of many years, just more and more people expressed interest with working with me,
mm,
which felt both like an honor and also was intimidating and scary in some ways, because the people who I work with down in South America, and these different elders and mentors and teachers and friends, I really see how much of their life they've dedicated to learning how to share, especially these very powerful plants, with people in a safe manner. Um,
yeah.
and thankfully, very early in my path, even in the moments where I got a little bit excited and ambitious about sharing these different plants and their ceremonies, I had mentors who could pull me to the side and say, "Hey, like, be aware not to move too quickly. Take your
Mm,
time. Receive our instructions, and don't uh, don't hurt yourself by moving too quickly, and
mm,
certainly do not hurt anybody else by moving too quickly."
yeah.
And receiving that advice very early on my path was probably the most singular beneficial piece of advice I ever received.
Mhm,
And I allowed myself to allow things to emerge organically. Something one of my other mentors says often, Carlos Picetto. He says, wait for someone to ask you to support them.
mm,
Wait to be invited in certain moments.
mm,
And when someone invites you or asks you for support and there's a genuine connection, it's your duty now, since you've made this commitment to this path, to support them in that way.
mm,
So, something that started out very naturally and slow and organic grew into something that I would have never imagined. Full retreats in other countries, private ceremonies with people in their homes, group ceremonies out in nature with people. And I have felt so honored to earn a reputation, a small reputation within my community, of being someone who works with these plants in a gentle yet effective manner. And this is the way in which I learned from my teachers.
mm,
So to be in a position of being able to host retreats, being able to host these private and group ceremonies, it's something that I really don't take for granted. It's something that I try to hold as carefully as possible. It's something I do my best to add my own approach and style to, while also keeping in integrity with the ways and the shapes and the forms that some of these ceremonies have been passed down to me, and really doing everything as much as I can from the heart and for the benefit of all life and for everybody present, and really trying to remove myself as much as possible. It's why after 10 plus years of doing this work and doing these offerings, I'm just now getting to the point of making Peaceful Arrow and a website for myself because it's been difficult to put myself at the forefront of these things, because I don't feel that way naturally.
yeah.
But I also see that we're living in a time where a lot of people could receive benefit from these practices, and especially from someone, and I say this very humbly, but somebody who has spent many years learning from initiated elders and teachers. Because, again, as we expressed earlier, we're living in a time where many people are very eager to share some of these teachings and experiences without actually having embodied the teachings and the wisdom,
Mm,
and maybe not even having any elders or mentors or teachers that they could reflect to. So I take the responsibility of sharing ceremonial work in a really deep way because it's been so helpful for me.
Yeah.
It really changed my life. It healed me physically back when I really needed it to in my early 20s, going through some different health difficulties. It's given me so much support, so much of firmer ground to walk upon. And it goes beyond, the psychoactive plants. It really goes to forging a deeper connection to nature itself and to God itself. So I'm happy to be sharing the work on a more, public scale now. Of course, still slowly, still organically, and I'm grateful for, yeah, your interest in the work as well, and giving me a platform to even share myself. And yeah, really wanting to do my best to allow people access to these ways, but in a manner that is gentle and safe and held with integrity.
Mm. So beautiful. And I feel your words and your integrity and your embodiment so deeply. Like that transmission for me is potent and real. So just really wanting to reflect that back to you. And yeah, just really honoring your the really deeply mindful and soulful and heartful approach to this work, because I do think it's really important to do it in the best way that we can and really honor the lineage and the mentors. And it is an initiation. Like
Mm.
I grieve that in this culture we don't have a lot of initiations that are like built into the culture. We
Mm-hmm.
have to seek them. And I was actually having a conversation yesterday with one of my elders and mentors, and we were talking about initiation and how it's not built in. And traditionally, in some cultures, like initiations were so scary and intense that you would actually be like hauled off to them. Like they would come
Yep.
and grab you
Yep.
and take you to the initiation. And so I'm just seeing and honoring you as putting yourself into the initiation,
Mm.
which is something that is like we have to do if you were kind of born in this world. Like we have to find those initiations to kind of I'm not sure what the exact right way to say this. Like it's not like deserve the right, but to
Mm.
gain like truer wisdom
Yes.
through actually walking a longer path, a deeper path in
Mm.
order to like really understand and hold those teachings and bring them forward in a really integrated, good, mindful, heart held, centered way.
Mm.
And
Yes.
so I just
Yes.
really admire your path and really want to just like honor you and reflect that. And I think
Mm.
that we need embodied teachers. We need young men already on the path of becoming an elder and like having that
Mm.
vision to share this work, because there are people who go to one ceremony and then are kind of like sharing this thing. And
Yeah, for
I
sure.
hear that and I understand that those experiences can just be so transforming and you like latch onto it and you want to just share that. And I understand that. And there's really a lot there.
Yes.
And I would
Yes.
really encourage people to find embodied teachers who are really slowly, step by step, moving through this place and have the blessing to share that medicine, have the blessing to share that work, because some of it really is sacred and really tied to a long path that I think needs to be upheld in order to
Mm.
also really get like the best experience and the safest experience.
Yes, for
So,
sure. For sure. Yeah, safety
yeah.
is so important in this work, and
Yeah.
it's it's really important as well. A lot of what you're speaking to with the initiatory practices is that, for me at least, they really promote a deep sense of humility.
Mm.
Some of the, specifically like the initiation of vision questing, which I've been able to have the honor of doing 4 times now.
Wow.
It's really a very humbling process.
Mm.
And part of these practices is to remind oneself that it's bigger than just us, you know. And there's certain forces, there's certain approaches, there's certain energies and awarenesses that we need to cultivate in order to carry and have the capacity to carry the
Mm,
weight and the responsibility of these traditional ways of sharing ourselves and healing and supporting the community. So yeah, that's something else I'm very passionate about, and hope that I get more opportunities to share about regarding the necessity of initiation and rites of passage and all those types of things. So, you
mm,
know,
so beautiful. Yeah, I feel it so deeply. So I am honored to have this conversation with you. And yeah, I would love to kind of just dive into anything that's coming up, any places you're sharing, work that you're excited about, anything on your horizon,
mm,
and just tapping into how people can find you. I'll have
yeah.
everything like linked, so all of the specifics will be there.
Hmm.
But I would love to just hear from you. What's really exciting you this summer and this season?
Mm. Yeah, thank you for asking. Well, you know, as of this recording, it's now May 2025, and during the first week of June, um, my dear friend Christiana and my wife Julia will be hosting a psilocybin retreat in Portugal. And although that's only a few short weeks away, we still have a few more spots for people if anybody's interested in that. And really, our approach with this work is to allow people to have access to a way of working with that specific medicine in a gentle and slow manner, in a way in which they can really relax and be at ease with the process, rather than um, catapulting themselves into psychic
Mm-hmm.
territories that maybe are a bit difficult to handle and process, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And really, there's a deep focus on, you know, meditation and stillness and silence in that retreat. So that's on the forefront of my mind in this moment.
Yeah.
You know, later in the summer, I'm going to be doing a couple other ceremonial gatherings, hopefully here in New York and maybe over in Sweden as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the way people can keep up to date with all of those movements is by subscribing to Peaceful Arrow's newsletter, which you can do by visiting peacefularrow.com, and also following the Instagram page Peaceful Arrow Co. And yeah, just reaching out. You know, I'm not too difficult to find online, and I have a lot of exciting things coming up in the future. So just reaching out to me and asking to be updated, I'll make sure that everyone who's interested gets all those updates.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yes. This retreat, Alchemy of Clarity, is just, it sounds so amazing. And I really hope to be able to join you there sometime soon. And I have
Mm.
two friends who have gone, and they both just said that one of them last year said that it was the best thing she'd ever done for herself.
Mm,
Like,
wow.
wow, that is so potent. And so, yeah, I'm just in awe of that, and it feels like such a beautiful space and in the most beautiful place, and with that
Mm,
slowness, that time to really integrate and to really tap deeper into the layers of ourselves and have the space to do that in a really held environment. So,
mm. Yes, yes. For anyone interested, you could find all that information at alchemyofclarity.com.
yes,
And there'll be more retreats coming in the future as well. So,
so
yeah.
beautiful. Well, is there anything else you would like to add or tap into?
Mm. Yeah, just an extension of my embodied prayer for peace.
Mm.
Really praying that we all can find the ways to cultivate and sustain peace within our lives and within our communities and upon the lands that we live on. And really encouraging people to seek out support through whatever means that is to help them cultivate that sense of peace, whether it's, through therapy or through mentorship or through the plants in a responsible and safe manner. Um, really encouraging people that if they need support, to seek it out, because I know in the moments where I find the courage to do that for myself, it's been very healing and helpful, and has helped me cultivate a deeper sense of peace within my life. So
Mhm.
just praying that everyone can do what they need to do to take care of themselves, and really just wanting to thank you for having me on this platform and for reflecting so beautifully to me, your insights and your wisdom and your path, and really wishing you all the success for this platform and all the rest of your work. So thank you
Mm,
again, Isla. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and right back to you. All of this vision of really cultivating a really deeply peaceful and prosperous future for all of humanity.
Mm.
It feels very alive to me, even within all the challenges that we're facing collectively. So thank you for your prayer and for your path. I think it's really, really potent and really felt. So thank you so much for joining and being here. And I'm so grateful to have met you in this way. And yeah, I hope our paths cross in real life soon.
I'm sure they will. Thank you so much. Again, looking forward to making this happen again at some point.
Absolutely.